Hello and happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to the weather forecast. I am Dooley Godot, your meteorologist, and this is the day that the Lord has made, so be glad and rejoice in it. So we're going to jump into your weather forecast today. I hope you guys had a great weekend and a wonderful Sunday, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Even though it went unnoticed, I went to church today and nobody mentioned Father's Day at all. I had to mention to somebody that today was Father's Day. So the unloved fathers in the world, I salute. So, alright, so here we go with that weather forecast. And before we get started on that, I want to remind everybody to support the channel on TikTok and YouTube. You know what to do. Likes, comments, subscribe, and follow. Do all the needful as we jump into the forecast. I hope you had a great weather today. The weather is actually pretty interesting right now because we have the potential for some tropical development in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're also have a heat wave that's building across the east, so a developing heat wave, and then lots of moisture over the center of the nation. So we had a very rainy day here across the Twin Cities yesterday. It rained all day yesterday here in Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is rather unusual for this time of the year. Rain tends to be very showery and with thunderstorms, so it tends to be hit and miss. But widespread rainfall that covered pretty much the entire eastern half of the state for quite a few hours yesterday. We picked up a couple of inches of rain, so very beneficial rainfall. Widespread rainfall, some flooding occurred as well. We did see some thunderstorms roll in when the rain became showery later in the evening. We did see some thunder last night, but we're going to see that in the forecast again this evening. Showers and thunderstorms through the entire week this week and into next week. So a week-long worth of showers and thunderstorms here across the upper Midwest. And it's going to be very, very warm as well. Highs tomorrow will be in the low to mid 90s. We're going to have a high of 94 here in the Twin Cities with showers and thunderstorms likely. Some of those storms could be severe with damaging winds, large hail, and a tornado is also going to be possible here across the Twin Cities. So we're going to be looking at the potential for severe weather on and off throughout the week. But a chance of thunderstorms persists every day through the week, but the chances for severe will be isolated and off and on throughout the week. So one of the heavier days is going to be Wednesday and again Friday into Saturday, but we're going to see more widespread showers and thunderstorms up here in the North Country. But for the most part, it's going to be isolated to widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. So hit and miss stuff is going to be possible every single day of this week and into the upcoming week after this week. So the next week and a half, we can see repeated rounds of showers and thunderstorms here in Minnesota, Wisconsin. That also includes the Dakotas as well. So get ready for showers and storms and hot weather here across the upper Midwest. Tomorrow will be the warmest day of the week here, but we're still going to see those highs remain in the 80s through the week and into next weekend. We're going to see those high temperatures in the low to mid 80s. A couple of days where we'll see upper 80s, but very high dew points in the 60s and 70s. So hot, humid, and isolated thunderstorms is going to be the rule of thumb for this upcoming week. So on our first map, we're going to take a look at the tropics. So down across the tropics here, the southern Gulf of Mexico, over the Yucatan Peninsula, we have this here that's going to be our most prominent potential for development this week, where we can see a tropical depression or some type of tropical low of some form in this region this week. Whatever happens with it, we're going to see lots of rainfall in this region all the way up to the south central U.S., to the Gulf Coast states, to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and Texas. We're going to see a lot of heavy rain, whether or not, regardless of whether this becomes a tropical depression or tropical storm, or if it's an extratropical system. whatever happened, there's something happening here that's going to be the focus. And with that pattern that we're in, that tropical moisture is going to make its way up to the U.S. from the south here, and that's going to provide fuel for heavy rain across Texas and the Gulf Coast, and showers and thunderstorms and severe weather through parts of the northern tier of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. And we're going to see that heat dome over the east. So Pittsburgh, Buffalo, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, D.C., those areas in the Northeast, New England, Mid-Atlantic states are going to see temperatures in the mid to upper 90s. Some of you might crack 100, and it's going to be very humid as well. That high is also pumping up moisture from the Gulf and the eastern, from the Atlantic. So lots of humidity and very hot. So a lot of areas are going to see excessive heat advisories in place because of the heat, the temperature combined with the humidity. Heat indexes is going to be in excess of 105 degrees, even though your high temperature is probably in the mid 90s, but your dew points will be in the 70s. So that's going to make for very uncomfortable, hot, oppressive heat across the east. So, and this is going to last all week. So probably a long-term, an extended period of excessive heat across the Northeast, the Great Lakes, and the Mid-Atlantic states. So get ready for that if you're over the eastern half. But this area, we're going to see a lot of potential for development. There's about a 70% chance that will be our first named tropical system across the Atlantic basin on this side of the continent. So we have that low pressure down here across the southern Gulf of Mexico in the Yucatan Peninsula, and that circulation is going to be bringing up tons of moisture from deep down in the tropics, from the equator. There's a moisture that's coming up from the equator and the intertropical convergence zone, and that moisture is being pulled up by this low pressure center as well as this high pressure center off the eastern U.S. coast. So our Bermuda high is also pumping in moisture off of the Atlantic. So we have two different fetches for a tropical moisture. So that's going to make things very humid, very hot, and very wet across the upper Midwest. And one reason why it's going to be very wet, particularly over Minnesota and the Mississippi River Valley, is because that region will be kind of on the periphery of that high. That high dome will be mostly over the east, but Minnesota will be on the edge, so we will be under what they call a dirty ridge. And a dirty ridge is an area of high pressure that allows for rainfall and moisture. So those thunderstorms will travel around the periphery, along the edges of the high. So we will have weak weather systems traversing the area from the west, because the west, we are seeing some snow through parts of the northern Rockies in Montana and western Wisconsin, Washington. We're seeing some snow. Some areas could pick up as much as a foot of snow. But those weak weather systems, when they approach the northern plains and the upper Midwest, will create showers and thunderstorms as they interact with that ridge of high pressure to the east. So a very unsettled weather pattern across the northern plains in the upper Midwest, and that heat dome over the east, as well as the heavy rain that we're going to see. Flooding rainfalls along the Gulf Coast, so Texas, Houston, down to Brownsville, to the Mexican border and the river here. Heavy rain over Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And we're going to see that heavy rain over Mexico as well. So eastern Mexico, so Veracruz down to Hermosillo. So we have Cancun, Mexico, all down around the Yucatan Peninsula. Now this is the area where the meteor hit that killed the dinosaurs. that meteor hit right about this region here. So right around this area is where we're going to see lots of rainfall from this storm system, where we're going to see in excess of 20 to 30 inches of rain across Mexico, and that's going to lead to flash flooding and lots of problems, because a lot of these areas don't have the infrastructure to manage that much rainfall. Even in the U.S., it's going to cause some problems despite our infrastructure. So that heat across the east, we're going to see some record temperatures as we head into the week. So the potential for record highs, especially on Thursday, as we see some areas looking at high temperatures here in the 90s, mid to upper 90s, from Boston all the way down through New York and the D.C. area over towards Columbus, Ohio. And this is going to spread further to the south and east as we go through time. So a very warm week ahead for you folks over the eastern half of the United States. So I hope some areas have some precautions in place to help people manage the heat. Some areas, I know in Florida, there's some places where they have like sprinklers that spray, the area down, like in some downtowns, a mist. They have misters. Some places have that. Area of local pools that are open, maybe where people can have ways to beat the heat and cool down. Remember, I always say to check in on the elderly. Don't leave your pets in the car. Don't leave children in the car. I know I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and they leave us in hot ass cars all the time. But I hope y'all not doing that in this heat, because these kids today aren't built like we were as a Gen X. We was built different, and we was used to being, tossed aside. So nobody thought about our ass until the street lights came on. I remember they used to have commercials. It's 10 o'clock at night. Do you know where your kids are? Nope, didn't know where we were. So, hey, that's what it was. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because growing up in the 80s was the best. That was the best. Being in California in the 80s was the best. There was no better place to be in the 80s than California. I'm sorry. It sucked now, but in the 80s, yep, it was fire. So we're going to have a lot of goddamn heat headlines across the east. Excessive heat watches, heat advisories in place. So this just tell you it's going to be hot. Again, like I said, temperatures in the 90s, dew points in the 70s. Some of those dew points might reach 80, so that's going to make triple digits heat indexes. So we can get heat advisories, excessive heat warnings as well, because of heat indexes and high humidities. Again, this is what we're going to look like for the jet stream early next week. High pressure down here over the southeast, low pressure here across the northern plains. That's going to bring snow across the northern Rockies, parts of the mountains in the northwest, the northern deserts of the Pacific Northwest. So Spokane, Yakima, Bend, Oregon, those areas east of the Cascades might see some snow. And in parts of Idaho, the mountains of Montana, so the Glacier National Park, Butte, if you're in those areas, along I-90 and I-84, you might be dealing with some snow in those regions as we go through the early part of the week. And don't forget the thunderstorms that we're going to be seeing over the Twin Cities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, Iowa, to Nebraska as well. Severe thunderstorms is going to be in the forecast for you all week this week. So every day this week, every day, today through next Sunday, be ready and prepared for a surprise thunderstorm. But it's not going to be a surprise because Mr. G told you that you can see a thunderstorm at any time this week if you're in the upper Midwest, the northern plains, the Great Lakes. So if you're in Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Southern Canada. If you're in Manitoba, be ready for random showers, thunderstorms, tornadoes, Damaging winds and large hail are going to be possible, and very, very, very heavy rainfall. It's going to rain a lot this week. There's lots of moisture to work with, lots of moisture from the tropics to work with. The moisture superhighway from the Gulf of Mexico is wide open, and it's being double fed from that low pressure right here and the high pressure up there, and they're both pumping that moisture into the United States. So be ready for those showers and thunderstorms, and it's going to rain a hell of a lot along the Gulf Coast. So from Panama City down to Brownsville, Texas, and even over Mexico. So Veracruz, Carmen, and Cancun, all up in here. We're going to see lots of rainfall. Some areas are going to be picking up in excess of 20 plus inches of rain. We could possibly see 10 inches or more rain here in the upper Midwest. So a lot of flooding is going to be possible between these two regions. So here's that rainfall we're going to look at around Texas here, and this is going to be through Thursday, but it might rain for longer than that because this is going to be a slow roll evolution for this. It's going to evolve slowly, but we're going to see that rain 8 to 12 inches, but isolated spots is going to get more than 12 inches. So a lot of rain is going to fall along the Gulf Coast. So remember Houston when they flooded back in Harvey? Expect that type of flooding again. Just think about Hurricane Harvey. If you were in Texas back when Hurricane Harvey hit, that's the kind of rain you're looking at this weekend. No joke. So again, heavy rain along the Gulf Coast for today, Monday, and Tuesday. It really kicks up a notch on Tuesday around Houston, southwestern Louisiana. But we're still going to see that heavy rain from Lafayette, Alexandria, back in my old stomping ground where my family is from, Rayville and Monroe, West Monroe. That heavy rain across into East Texas there. So lots of heavy rain, heavy rain. It's going to flood out there. So we have that Atlantic basin is very active. We have our 30% chance for this. Now, this is what dropped all of that rain over Florida the other last few days. But now that's heading out this way. But that still has a 30% chance of developing. But this guy here has a 70% chance. But the problem with this is that it's going to be very short-lived if it develops here, because it's going to hit land no matter which direction it goes. It's going to hit land pretty quick. But if it forms out here, it might run off this way and have some time to develop, or it might hit Florida. Now, remember Hurricane Ivan? Now, no, Ian, not Ivan, but Ian. Remember, Ian developed down here like this. Hurricane Ian developed here, but went up to Florida like this way. It went up and hit Tampa, St. Petersburg. Remember Ian a couple of years ago? So that's kind of like back I think that was during the pandemic when we were all on lockdowns. Hurricane Ian hit Florida. So again, we're going to be watching that closely for development. That looks promising. For a little something, even though it might be short-lived, this big bastard here, this heat dome, is going to be the catalyst for all of this stupidity that's going on. So the air circulates like this around that high pressure. The center of the high is here. The air flows in this clockwise direction. Yeah, clockwise. This count is clockwise. The air circulates like this, and that air coming around like this again. See that? It's pulling moisture off of the Atlantic, and it also pulls moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. And then an area of low pressure right around here is also reinforcing that pump. So we got that moisture and heat pump, pumping that heat in, pumping that moisture from the Gulf, from the water. And then look at this. A jet stream. We have a trough over the west, a strong jet stream, high amplitude ridge over the east, into Canada. So that jet stream is providing energy for showers and thunderstorms. So if you're here in the Midwest, from Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Arkansas, Missouri, all through Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all through this. So if you're under the influence of this jet stream and the weak weather systems that are coming along that jet stream, you're going to be seeing repeated rounds of showers and thunderstorms today. So a very active week for the upper Midwest and the northern half of the country as we work through this week. So not going to be a boring forecast for you today. Not of excitement if you were here. So showers and thunderstorms today, tomorrow across the upper Midwest and the northern plains. Minnesota, we have a slight risk for severe thunderstorms, but a marginal risk down in Minneapolis. So we're going to be seeing a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms tomorrow. We're going to be looking for isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms. Some thunderstorms may be severe with large hail and damaging winds. A few tornadoes is going to be possible, and excessive rainfall is going to be likely. Again, here's that rainfall forecast that we're going to be seeing for Monday and Tuesday. Very heavy rainfall, especially over north central Minnesota. We're going to see the heaviest rainfall, where we're going to see a 3 out of 4 and then a 2 out of 4 across the Twin Cities, east central Minnesota here. So until northwestern Wisconsin, we're going to be seeing a little bit less of a threat for a heavier rain and flash flooding, but we got a bigger threat there. But we're going to see a lot of rain this week, area wide. So get ready for a very wet week. It amps up a bit as we get into Tuesday. We have a slight risk here in the Twin Cities. Is right in the middle of that risk from Duluth all the way down through Brainerd, Ashland, Wisconsin, down through Albert Lee, Minnesota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as well as Mason City, Iowa, down to Des Moines. We're going to be seeing a pretty good risk for severe thunderstorms. So showers and thunderstorms. Some thunderstorms might be severe with large hail and damaging winds in excess of 70 miles per hour, heavy rainfall, excessive rainfall likely, and a few possible tornadoes as well. So lots of energy in the atmosphere, a weak cap, so that'll be easy to break through any cap. So a very stormy week is on tap across for the upper Midwest and the northern plains. More heavy rains continue Tuesday through Wednesday. Again, a 2 out of 4 for that flooding threat across the Midwest. Again, as we head through the middle of the week, and again, more chances for heavy rain and flooding. So this will probably increase as we get closer to Thursday. So that is your weather forecast. And depending on how you look at it and where you live, it's going to be kind of miserable for everybody. I wouldn't call this a great forecast because that type of heat is going to be unbearable. I mean, I don't know. It's not going to be fun because it's going to be the warmest that it's been in some time. It's been a number of years, probably 5 years, since we had this type of heat across the Northeast and New England. And the other thing I didn't mention that the National Weather Service has declared El Nino over, and we are now in INSO neutral conditions. So we are in the in-between between El Nino and La Nina. Now, that region 3.4 is always average about 1 centimeter above zero. And that's about where we are right now. So even though it's still above, it's considered INSO neutral. But we're going to probably see those temperatures cool over that part of the eastern equator there near South America, that region 3.4 in the Neo in the over the waters there. So we're going to see a weak to moderate El Nino develop. Probably by September, we're going to be seeing La Nina. I wish we should. El Nino is my favorite because we had that super El Nino, and we had a wonderful winter. We didn't even see 14 inches of snow. By the time February ended, there was no snow to melt. It was beautiful. We had the easiest winter I can remember in the 22 years that I've been living in Minnesota. This was one of the easiest winters ever. So, but unfortunately, La Nina often gives us the bad winters, because the year before, when we were in a strong La Nina, we had 90 inches of snow, and it really sucked. See, this winter I worked from home, but that winter I was working for the VA, and I worked on site, and it sucked because every time I would go to work, it snowed damn near every day. And it was stupid trying to catch a train and get to work in the snow all the time. So, but it might be back. But I work from home, so hopefully that continues, and I don't care what happens in the winter. So, but anyway, but my wife drives to work, and I would want her to have a good time, a good morning commute. So I pray again that we don't see a lot of wintry snow, or the snow comes at a time that she's not on the road and they have time to clean up a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to shut my trap and be done with this video. So again, be careful, everybody. A lot of tricky weather this week. Some areas is going to be very, very hot. It's going to be pretty warm across the board, with the exception being parts of the Northwest, where it might be cooler in the mountains, a little bit cooler. I know it can get warm there too, but you're going to have a little bit of cooler, some cold, some snow in some areas in the northern Rockies, and across the border into Canada, we can see some snow. Maybe that can help temper some of the fires down as well. But very hot over the east. So the Northeast, New England, get ready for that heat. Very hot. It's going to be miserable. And then there's lots of wet weather across the upper Midwest and along the Gulf Coast. So Florida, West Florida, all the way to South Texas, lots of heavy rain, thunderstorms, tropical weather for you folks. So that'll do it for today's video. Leave your likes, comments. Feel free to subscribe and follow me on TikTok, YouTube. You know what to do. I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Bye-bye.